going to talk about the major projects on Long Island. Some of them already started, some of them already built, some of them not. And we're going to talk about why that is. Try to get into the nuts and bolts of how you get a major project on Long Island off the ground and how you get it moving forward. A lot of people have said some of these things are impossible to get moving forward, but some of these guys have actually done that. So I think it's to their credit. We have an interesting panel. Today we have Sal Coco from BD Harvey Coco Architects. He's going to talk about Wyandanch Rising. We have Frank Haftel from RXR. He's going to talk mostly about Garvey's Point, which is another huge project up in Glencoe that's getting started soon. We also are supposed to have Bob Coughlin from Tritech. He's probably going to talk about the Ronkonkoma Hub. And I don't think Dave Wolkoff can make it, but I think that he's going to have a stand-in. Terry Oakwitz, I think he's going to stand in for him. And that obviously is about the Heartland Town Center. So let's get started while we have these guys ready. Sal's going to start the program and he's going to talk about the PowerPoint. He's going to talk about Wyandanch Rising. Sal?
So thank you very much. Wyandanch Village, as it's now been rebranded.
I'm not familiar.
I know you're supposed to. So Wyandanch Village, it was about 10 years of land acquisition by the town of Babylon. Wyandanch is a train station about 55 minutes from Manhattan. A lot of the property there was underutilized, basically. 2011, an RFP was issued for development RFP. A number of local firms responded, and regional firms. We're the architectural firm working directly for the Albanese organization, and the Albanese organization was selected for the redevelopment. Prior to our involvement, the town had hired a planning firm out of Virginia, Torney Gallis, who came up with the beginnings of the master plan. After we were selected, we worked with Albanese, revamped the master plan, this area by the train station, phase 1, which will be driven by the area. You've seen that all is under construction. What we did is made the green in the center much longer. There's 2 buildings facing it. 40 Station Drive and 10 Station Drive. As we glamorously call them Building A and Building B. This building is now complete and it's occupied, and that's Building A. 40 Station Drive, it's 91 apartments. There's a wide range of unit types and sizes, and there's also retail. This is a 5-story building. Those are some of the images as it was envisioned. It's metal studs over a steel podium, and there's 17,000 square foot of retail. And this project is now, this was summer of 2014, and it's built today. New York Community Bank is building a branch here. All of the apartments are occupied, and in the center, as you saw, was this park that will be, absolutely terrific. It was designed by Olin out of Philadelphia, a national landscape architectural firm, and that is now under construction. But I think when Building B and the park are complete, this really will start to come together. This is more of Building A, it's the other corner. And across the street, 86 apartments This one is nearing completion. They're about 85% done. You see the park in the middle. And all of this was done with a form-based code. We had to work with different styles of architecture, Tudor, Federal, Greek Revival, and blend them together. That was part of the RFP process. We worked with the town of Babylon on different iterations with the approval process. It was to be honest, it was a difficult process to get their approval on the architecture, on the materials. They wanted the highest quality materials, and we're doing it in a somewhat, some of it is market rate, but mostly affordable housing. And these are some more of the images. So the next steps here is a commercial building that is being looked at, and they're looking at major tenants, 110,000 square feet, would sit at the head of the park, and would really make this, complete mixed-use live, work, and play location. We'll have the retail, the apartments, and a place to work. You have the parking garage. That was also an investment by the MTA. The first phase of that has been built, and there's a second phase which could be financed as well. And beyond that, there's more. There's 40 acres here. That's a look at the office building that is currently being marketed right next to the train station. So you could, even do reverse commute or regional commute to this office building. And that's the extent of it. There's Geiger Park, which is walkable. Another investment by the town of Babylon. So we've worked, right here, but there's hopefully more to come and really make this a destination. That's it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Frank now, and he's going to talk to us about Garvey's Point.
Hi, Frank Haftel with RXR Realty. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Dave, for moderating today. We have a few projects on the either under construction or on the board for approval and to begin construction imminently. We wanted to focus today on Garvey's Point. Garvey's Point is here's a picture of what Garvey's Point looked like in 1950. It's an industrial site, munitions factories. As you know, the history of the waterfront of Long Island is that in the middle of the 20th century, it was used for industrial uses, so that barges could access the waterfront and transport material off the island. And so much of the waterfront of the island and much of the northeast is really it was used for uses like this. As transportation changes through the decades, we, especially us in Long Island, have, I believe, a duty to transform these blighted, underutilized waterfront areas into responsible developments that help Long Island grow, help the next generation of Long Islanders thrive, bring back the youth onto Long Island that now find themselves priced out of the island, and not only priced out, but also find themselves not having the type of lifestyle that they want. Either young people coming back from college that don't really have many options here on the island, as well as older people as the children start leaving the house and they start finding that living in single-family homes is no longer the ideal lifestyle, and they want a vibrant, active life. They really want us to be able to move into a transit-oriented, what we call a smart growth development opportunity. This is what Garvey's Point looks like today. As you can see, it's vacant land. It's land that has been, since 1997, has been remediated off of the contaminants that were thrown off of these sites. Between RXR, the city, and the federal government, we have, as a group, spent over $100 million remediating the site during the last 18 years. And it's now in a condition where I don't think there are many sites in the whole country that could be any more that have been under more environmental scrutiny and have more cleanup done to them. And this is our plan. This is our vision for what Garvey's Point can be by 2020. And what we have here is a site of 56 acres, and about 50% of which are being used for public amenities. We have green spaces, we have an amphitheater, boardwalks, 1.1 miles of esplanade. We're restoring the creek. We are building marinas, putting restaurants, playgrounds, dog walks, so that it becomes an attraction, a focal point, and a destination, not just for residents of this future neighborhood, but also for people throughout the North Shore of Long Island. In an area that can really be a vibrant, multicultural, diverse community that attracts the youth, that attracts, like we said, what we call the empty nester market, and even families into this area. And so this is our plan. We have rental housing on the east end, along with some retail and commercial space. We have condos being built on the western end of the site, and interspersed throughout these buildings and structures, we have this necklace of parks and public amenities that we'll go through in a minute. And so, the idea is that the whole development would be integrated into the existing fabric of Glen Cove, so that traffic would be able to spill over into the existing downtown and help those businesses thrive. As well as provide connection to the existing preserve, so that that can be used as an extension of recreational opportunities in the development. So we're showing here there's a 1.1, as I mentioned earlier, 1.1 mile esplanade. We have pedestrian walkways throughout the project, so that again, this is not just for residents of the development. This is not a gated community. It's very much a community that's meant to be integrated into the fabric of Glen Cove. And so there are walkways throughout, inviting people to the park to use the space, and also connecting to the existing trails on the Garvey's Point Preserve, which will help that underutilized amenity that we have to be utilized. We have a number of entry plazas, again, inviting people into the community. We've also designed retail that is located throughout the project, so that it becomes a walking experience throughout the development. And you can stop for ice cream, you can stop for a cup of coffee, a beautiful restaurant at the point with views of the water, multi-use lawns throughout the space. Again, the intent being to welcome the entire community and not just the residents of the development. In amenities that are intended to be programmed. So we're intending to have farmers markets, movies on the park. There's seating throughout the development as well. As you can see, all the yellow spaces to provide for passive recreation as well. And here we have some renderings of what I was just describing, the walk through this creek, what we call the ecology walk, so that we can experience some of that natural habitat with the buildings set back in the background, so that the waterfront is really reclaimed, as we said at the beginning of the presentation, reclaimed for the public. Entry points that are well marked, inviting the public throughout. And open green spaces for passive recreation, and we mentioned earlier, movies on the park, and a number of other programming initiatives that will be developed in conjunction with the residents and the community as we move forward. These are just some ideas. There's also a ferry terminal that's being built right now. It's supposed to be completed by the beginning of 2016, and that will provide commuting to New York City within a 40-minute commute to Midtown Manhattan. That will be, we believe, useful not just for residents to commute in and out of the city, but also for people who wanted to use these public amenities on weekends as a recreation destination. The Esplanade of the Ecology Walk is another view looking toward the creek, the marinas, so it's an amenity for boaters as well. They can come in, dock, enjoy the amenities for the day, use the restaurant, etc. Sunset Park, which is right at the westernmost point of the development. This shows a view, one rendering, one concept of this cafe off of at the westernmost point. And finally, restoring a beach area that is now also, vastly underutilized, and an attraction for residents and visitors. This development we were brought in by the city of Glencoe, and we were brought in as a partner, and we see ourselves fully as a partner with the city of Glencoe in creating, as you can see, something that isn't just a residential development for profit. This is something that gives back to society, gives back to the public, while still obviously making sense, and it has to obviously make sense from a business perspective. And so it's been a great partnership so far. Obviously, you can never keep everybody happy, but we believe that the amount of support is just tremendous, and the support that we've received from the various administrations has been really remarkable. And I think it's a reflection on the many benefits that that the project provides. In addition to restoring natural habitat, in all the green benefits, we're designing the buildings to be environmentally responsible with drainage structures and green roofs that allow for recycling of storm water to be used for irrigation purposes. We also are providing workforce housing into this development. 10% of the housing will be, which is about 111 units to be exact, of the 1,100 total will be workforce housing units. The project is expected to cost about $1 billion over a period of 5 to 7 years, and create hundreds of jobs for the city of Glencoe, not just construction jobs, but obviously also permanent jobs. People will be working in the buildings in the surrounding community, and create $24 million of direct investment annually per year, just by virtue of the business created by the development, and overall annual economic benefit to the entire city of Glencoe of $50 million a year. And in addition to that, as we spoke earlier, there's public transportation, and we were speaking earlier at the luncheon about infrastructure benefits, and the ferry and shuttles and other infrastructure improvements are also part of the overall development. So this has been, as I said earlier, this has been a public-private partnership, creating really something that is much greater than what's there now. And recently, we've also amended the plan, and I'm sure you've seen us in the news recently. And we amended the plan to, at the request of the city, to provide even more open space than we were providing before. So, whereas before, this is the previously approved plan, and on the right is what was approved back in October of this year. And so under the previously approved plan, we had some green space on the western half of the site. And it obviously was a nice amount of green space. Sunset Park, which we saw in the renderings, is down here at the southwestern point, and the restaurant here at the tip, at the edge of the property, and 4 buildings. And what we did, again, at the request of the city and people that wanted to see even more access to the front and the water end of the property by Hempstead Harbor, is to increase the amount of open space, which we did here in the plan that was approved in October. And so we did that by consolidating some of the uses that were on the first plan, 4 buildings, and remove some of that density to a building on the eastern end of this portion of the property, and another building on the western end, thereby opening up the middle. And therefore we were able to create an additional 3 acres of open space, and without increasing the overall density of the project. So units were just distributed throughout other buildings. And the other thing that was done under this plan is that the original plan approved 1,100 residential units or 860 residential units plus 250 hotel units. And what we did is we opted to exercise our option to build the residential as opposed to the hotel units, thinking that that was a more beneficial plan for considering the shortage of housing in the current market. So, as part of this amendment, we've decreased the development density by about 500,000 square feet, and again by redistributing square footage throughout the property. And this also allows us to cause lower impact on wetlands and on dredging, and we've also decreased the height of the overall project, in that the original plan had two 12-story buildings, and now we only have one 11-story building, everything else being 5 stories or less. So overall, we think a huge win for the public, for the city. This is our new plan, and obviously we're still fitting within our goals. This is another view of what that original building looked like. Same height. What we've done now is we've separated this mass at the front between two towers within one building. It's one building, but now we separated the mass, and so that opens up also views from people looking through on the harbor, Princeton Harbor, and so opens up more light and air than originally provided, and including Seacliff. We had previously the neighboring village more mass blocking their view to the preserve, and now by having that big open space that I showed you earlier in the middle, we've opened up that view in the middle. And these are just some renderings, some concept renderings of what those buildings will look like. Again, the effort is to make them contextual to the current what's the current architecture in Glencoe, and but at the same time providing spectacular buildings with state-of-the-art amenities, outdoor swimming pools, decks, recreational gyms, resident lounges. Really a beautiful state-of-the-art luxury building like what you typically only see in Manhattan, and we're bringing that type of lifestyle here in these walkable downtown environments. Some more renderings of what these plans and buildings will look like, and that's Garvey's Point.
Thank you, Frank. Who are we missing? Heartland. This is here. Okay, so we're not going to hear about the Ronkonkoma Hub, it looks like, unfortunately, or the Heartland. Is it called Heartland Square? Heartland Town Square, I believe. Those two projects have not been started yet. Although Tritech has been assembling properties, acquiring properties around the train station. It's going to be about 50 acres that they need to acquire, and they've been doing that steadily. I know they have financing in place. I know that the sewers for the Ronkonkoma Hub are full speed ahead. The planning of those it's already underway. They're talking about also moving part of the airport infrastructure closer to the hub in Ronkonkoma, so there'll be more synergy between the train station and MacArthur Airport. So that's pretty exciting. But the Heartland plan, we've been talking about this for years and years. I mean, I've been doing this same large project workshop here, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years, and we've had David, and every year he says, well, we're close, we're close, we're close. It's a massive project. I think the last thing we've heard is that they agreed to do it in phases. Phase 1 by itself would have 3,500 apartments. That's massive, plus some mixed use and stuff like that. So I don't know, if Islip has the political will truthfully, to go ahead and approve this. They've been going back and forth with it, going back and forth with the DOT about the Saginaw Coast widening that would have to take place to have this project done. I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg thing. I don't know if it has to do with political will, but none of these projects are moving forward, especially in election years. And you know, that's something that always happens here in Long Island. But I wanted to get back to the project that we have been discussing. You know, Frank mentioned a couple of things, but one of the problems with these projects isn't always politicians or isn't always government. Sometimes it's financing, and these days there's plenty of money for multifamily rentals. There's investors out there that want to throw money at these projects because they fill up quickly. There's a great demand here for them, especially on Long Island, and it's really a home run. And Frank, you could probably speak to this. Financing is way easier to get for multifamily rentals than it is for sale housing or for the hotel that was going to be there originally. So it's not just that you change the plans because you wanted to change the plans, but it's more convenient in terms of money. It's more viable. And the same goes for Wyandanch Wyandanch Village, which is very, very heavily subsidized. I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression that this is a total private sector project. There's a lot of government money in Wyandanch in the project. The town had to buy a lot of the properties in advance. So I think the jury's still out on how it's going to go and how viable it's going to be. I know you're having a little trouble renting the retail space. Is that correct?
I think some of it has been rented, but part of it is the fact that the park is still under construction and Building B is still under construction. But I'm confident that once the park is done,
The office building won't start until you have some tenants.
well, of course, and they want to see all of that complete before they're really going to play it.
What were some of the biggest obstacles in getting these things off the ground? Now you had a little of an easier time because the town laid a lot of the groundwork out for you before by acquiring the parcels, which is probably one of the biggest issues. What are some of the obstacles that your project faced? And also, I'm going to ask Frank the same question.
I think it was getting the right mix of product that was going to come to market. The first building had 20% affordable, 80% market rate, and the second building was HFA financed, and there was a lot of study by Albanese as to what was the right product to put forward. We always knew the retail was going to be difficult. You're putting retail in a place where, you know, McDonald's had gone out of business. So the fact that it's actually renting, they have people interested. There's a bank coming, other fast food place, and a corner, possibly 7-Eleven next to the train station. The fact that that is going to happen is really showing that it's started to turn around. But no doubt it's been a challenge. It was a big risk that was taken. You know, and it's not like building a downtown Manhattan condo. The type of return is a much smaller return, but it's been a big risk, and I think it's working in a positive manner. For the whole, I think it's going to be dependent on the market. We've been looking at the other sites north of where we've been designing or where they're building. We've looked at other sites north of there. We haven't looked south of the train station yet, but we've looked at wrapping the parking garage with an apartment building. We looked at a more dense apartment building where right now they were looking at townhouses. It's taking a little bit, you know, it takes time for it to hold, and I do see it happening, but probably 6 months. I mean, it was not, you know, I'm an architect, not a real estate person, but you know, the affordable went right away, but the market rate took a little bit. And we'll see what happens with Building B, which should be finished I believe by February.
Thanks a lot. And the affordable apartments in Wyandanch, if I'm correct, are restricted to lower income people. I think it's like 30,000. You can make up to 30-something thousand a year for the one bedroom. A little more.
I think it's 60% of median income.
60%.
Which Long Island median income is
Right. 60. Okay. Frank, what was some, you might have, I don't know if the board's going to reach. What was some of the obstacles that you've been facing? And also, give us an idea of when this is actually going to start. I know you're clearing land on the site, and I know phase one has site approval.
Yeah, I think the obstacles on Garvey's Point are, obviously every site is different, so a little different than Wyandanch. Here we have environmental concerns that had to be coordinated with 19 different government agencies, from the city to all the way to the federal government. DC, EPA, Fish, Wildlife, I mean, you name it, every agency was there. And that was just a very labor-intensive process, takes time. I think the government agencies were, I have to say, very cooperative in terms of going through the process, but it's a process just by its nature. It was challenging to get through. So that's one, and as I mentioned earlier, a huge amount of investment, right, over $100 million to clean it up. And the standards for to do a project like that are down to, every bucket of dirt that comes out of the site. There is a standard for how that has to be reviewed and inspected. So clearly, very much under scrutiny, so that the health and safety are virtually as guaranteed as anything like that can get. The other challenge is when you build a project like this, it's very expensive to build all the public infrastructure. And the buildings, just because they're built on a site that requires $120 million worth of public infrastructure between parks and marinas and boardwalks, all these beautiful improvements that I showed you, they're not free, obviously, and but the renter or the buyer of a unit isn't paying any more for rent or to buy a unit than they would pay for a comparable apartment down the road that didn't have to build $120 million worth of public improvement. So financing and finding sources of funds for that incredible investment is something that is a challenge that we're working through, and we believe we have great creative solutions to get that done, but that's clearly something that isn't easily answered. I would say those are definitely our two biggest challenges.
Basilico is clearing the land as we speak, right?
Well, most of the land has been cleared through the years. There's no clearing taking place right now. We expect shovel to be in the ground this spring. Absolutely, yeah. That's within 18 to 24 months after that. So about 2 years.
Still looking at 2 years before people can get in. I'm going to open it up to questions. We have a lot of people here. Anybody have any questions of these two gentlemen? Sure.
1,110 to be exact. 75,000 square feet of commercial, so that's between retail and office space. Roughly 25,000 of retail and 50 of office.
Yeah.
Dealing with neighbors, NIMBYs, how would you deal with that? I mean, got a little bit on the paper, but
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So, I mean, look, it's a huge development, 56 acres, and you can never make anybody happy, right? You'll never make anybody happy when you're building a single lot that's already zoned, and nobody can expect anything other than what's there, and much less on something like this. So, it's understandable. We're respectful to. You use the word NIMBY, and it's a term we're all familiar with, and we're respectful to the fact that I think many, I'm not going to say most, but I think many of those who oppose projects like this one are genuine about their concerns. I personally think they're misguided. I'm going to assume that, you know, happen to be, it's not often that I'm in a friendly, you know, when we're explaining these projects, we're in a friendly environment. I think obviously everybody here probably agrees with that. Because I think what really, you know, what's really good for these cities is the growth. It's responsible growth, but it's growth. It brings, otherwise cities die out, right? That happens. It happens, and it doesn't just happen in third world countries. It happens in, you know, we've seen examples in Detroit where they had to declare bankruptcy, and there are places like that where if we don't help, if we don't motivate the economies die out. And so I think some of it is genuine, and a lot of it is simply some of these people realizing that we really are at the cusp of putting a shovel in the ground. We were down to approving very minor details on the plan, and I think it's people being opportunistic and waiting for that final, right, for that last day where they have their last gasp to try to stop a project, and are using, you know, what is no doubt a frivolous claims of you know, of environmental issues not having been resolved, you know, absurd, and you know, view pollution, light pollution, everything we've done is just improve the site. And what's kind of funny about this whole thing is that the original approval, I showed you a slide previously that had the currently or the previously approved plan versus the currently approved plan, and if they win, the best they can do is go back to the previous approved plan that only has more buildings and taller buildings on the site. So it's not logical. But you know, some people have different views as to what these cities should look like, and they just want to see a vacant piece of land so they can, you know, I don't know what they would do with it, but that's what some people just resist change. That's
One of the advantages that these two guys had, they're coming into blighted properties. I mean, the properties that they took over were really crappy. The Glencoe Creek, you know, I mean, it's horrible. Oh, sorry, horrible. Wrong guy. Glencoe Creek was horrible. I mean, all this industry and all this stuff, and it was really run down. And so I feel that the NIMBYs kind of, you know, it's better than what was there, although they do come in last minute. It's been my experience. And it allows them, once you get your approvals, to file an Article 78, and there you go. They have to wait for the approvals, and then it ties it up even further. And the big thing that I've heard when I go to these meetings for these projects is we don't want it to look like Queens. Well, here's a newsflash. Property values in Queens have risen about 3 or 4 times in the last 6 years. They're thriving in Queens. I think it's more, you know, my personal opinion is that they just don't want the people that they see in Queens coming to their neighborhoods. But that's another story. Any other questions out there? Yes?
For Garvey's point, 2 questions. With regards to the docks, have you guys put thought into whether you want to do public docks or have private regions come in? And the other thing is with regards to workforce housing, have you thought about, is it going to be a percentage of your income, or what's the price of the measure?
So the docks will be available for public use and in transient use, right? Yeah, as well as people that want longer-term plans. And affordable housing is it's actually, the term is workforce housing, and it's up to 130% of median income, which in 2015 the household number was $109,000 in household income.
Yeah.
For Garvey's point, what's your target market in demographics? Like we heard this morning about the transit-oriented developments around the Long Railroad train stations, and this is going to be up on a point, you know, on the water, look beautiful. But who are you going after in terms of rent, market rate?
Right. So we think that the people most likely to be interested in this type of lifestyle are either young people coming back from college, starting their careers, But by and large, I would say over 50% will be people over 50, most of whom, they raise their families in Long Island. The children are out of the house already, which I know recently kids stay longer and longer, right? Mine are still little, so I'm not there, but it's people, kids leave and no longer need to maintain, larger homes and have the upkeep, lawn, snow removal, etc. So wanting to live in these town centers. So it's a combination, I think, of people at both ends of raising families.
What's the around price for one two-bedroom apartment or
Right. For a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment, I think we're at an average of about $2.75 a foot on average, which for a typical 1 bedroom apartment would work out to be about, let's say, $3,000 a month, between $2,500, a range between $2,500 and $3,000. 2 bedrooms are larger, up to about 1,500 square feet, so that's.
I love that. I love that. Well, here's the thing. So, who's priced out apartments in Manhattan recently? Anybody?
Can I just answer that?
Yes.
The way it works is,
Come on down.
Hi, I'm the director too. I work for Franklin's project. Well, the way it works is the reason why you're seeing this price difference and how things are privileged. This we are programming as though 2 college students can share. So when they're starting their career, $1,000 each on Long Island is a fair rent if you combine all the work amenities and game room, the swimming pool decks, all of that stuff. Right? It's just we're just not getting an apartment to live. We're getting the amenities too. That's why. That's why it's
Good point. No, but also, there's some apartments in Farmingdale that will go TOD. That's TOD by Bartone. I know you guys know about it. $2,500 for a 1 bedroom starts out in Farmingdale, and everybody goes $2,500 for 1 bedroom. But look at the apartment prices now in Williamsburg, in Astoria, or in Manhattan.
Long Island City.
Long Island City. Stuyvesant Town, right? It's supposed to be affordable. There's a guy paying $5,000 a month for a 2-bedroom unit. So that's what's happening here. Manhattan has a 99% occupancy for apartments right now. It's an all-time high. There's no place to live. It's very expensive. And you know how many kids are in an apartment in Manhattan? It's not 2. It's maybe 22. So that's what's happening here. We're getting the spillover, and with the demand from the city, we're getting the spillover here, and not just in residential, but we're getting that spillover in the industrial market, we're getting it in the office market, and that's what Long Island's been about. After it became a metro community, we're getting the spillover of what happens in New York City. Thank God we're close to New York City, because if we weren't, it might be a whole different situation. The proximity to New York City actually saves us in terms of all of this. Any other questions? Got to be a couple. Go ahead.
one question about the point there, Joe. So you said one of the buildings is done and occupied? Right. And so representing that area, curious, near the train station, your ideal is maybe have some young professionals get on the train, go into the city, go someplace else on Long Island. What percentage of the people in the first building fit that model? Do we know, or any, do you have any idea?
You're Phil Boyle, the assembly. I'm going to be honest with you, I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I
I'd
don't
be
know.
interested to find out.
They were not necessarily designed as roommate-style units. They were more designed, there's family-style units in there. But there might be roommate types. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Blind Dance Village project, did it draw from the Indian area, the western Suffolk area? Where do you work in terms of demographics? Do you know, and you're known as the architect, in terms of the occupants where they came from, how they from over community? Okay.
I don't know. Tom Isles, right? I don't know Tom. Yeah.
Okay. I know it's brand new.
I know about the planning and the architecture.
I know it's new, and some days may come out,
It looks great, by the way.
Yeah.
For Garvey's point, when do you plan on being in the market for construction bank financing?
At the beginning of the year, internally, yeah, in about a couple of months. We are already working on preparing our package. Yeah, I think we after the holidays we'll get back to the market. And the point of clarification is that the ranges I gave you are for the 2-bedroom units, right? The 1-bedroom units would be well below that range, starting under $2,000, $1,800 a month. And also when I talk about post college, I'm not saying it's not necessarily just 2 kids right after college, moving back here, which obviously is a tougher time when you're starting your career. But there's more and more people are starting to have families later, and there's a gap of, on average, a good decade after you graduate from college when you are either living on your own, but your career is advancing, or right. So demographics are changing rapidly. They're not what they were even when I was in that situation, and so you've got a decade when people are growing up, maybe married but not yet having children, and even families with young children but not yet ready to make a move into a large, to a home. So that's still part of that market that we're attracting.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, what's the bidding process for the retail on the bottom level of these developments? Like, when new retail comes in, like, is there like a process, like if it's going to be a Wendy's or a CVS, like how does that work?
It's really whatever, it's market rate.
You talk about tenant mix. Yeah.
I think it's whatever the market. It's market driven. Whatever. Right now there's a bank, a pizza place, possibly 7-Eleven, and then a small restaurant that have shown interest.
The problem with the retail at Wyandanch Rising is, Wyandanch Village, I keep calling it Wyandanch Rising. The problem with the retail, not that there is a problem, but if you look around the neighborhood, you could rent a space for $12 a square foot. The nail salon 2 blocks away is renting that a space for $12 or $14 a square foot. So then when these guys come along and build beautiful space for $28 a square foot or for $25 a square foot, I think it's coming down. Where are you going to go? You're going to go. So I think that the development has to mature a little more. I think it has to show that that it's working before a lot of retailers buy in. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a tougher hill to climb than actually just renting the apartments, which is a great demand for. That makes sense?
Thanks.
Got any more questions? No more questions? Closing statements? No? One thing I could say about apartment prices real quick, everything's based on supply and demand still. You see all these projects being built. At one point there's going to be a lot of apartments, especially if Heartland gets built. That'll probably moderate the price. So it's going to be ebbs and flows. It's not going to be just, oh God, we're going to pay like this forever. But we're under rented right now. We're under retailed right now. Believe it or not, on Long Island, we're actually under retailed in terms of other areas. There's less retail here per square foot than most places, and there's much fewer apartments than the other suburbs. I think Westchester in New Jersey, I think they're around 37% now rental apartments. We're still hovering around 21%, even with all these projects coming online. So we do have a long way to go. Sure there's no more questions? That's it? No? I guess that's it. We'll wrap it up. Thank you very much for coming.